Can a robot write a symphony? Welcome to Primary Technology, the show about the tech news that matters. This week, we're going back into all the announcements from WWDC and a lot of things we have learned since the keynote, details that I haven't seen anywhere else. And so excited to talk about that. Apple Intelligence, iOS 18, macOS Sequoia, and Jason was there in person, but he's back from the studio show floor thing. So we're going to hear his personal experience there. This episode is brought to you by you, the members who support us directly. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Robles. And like I mentioned, Jason, you're back. You're back at the desk.
I am. I can't complain about anything, but it is nice to be sitting here with my microphone and set up. And 3 of the last 4 shows I've been somewhere else, it seems like.
You're traveling. Speaking of which, you flew to WWDC. Did you wear the Apple Vision Pro on the plane?
No, I didn't even take it.
Jason.
And I actually caught quite a bit of flack for that because one of the things I had a chance to do was to sit down with some indie developers who were making apps for the Vision Pro.
Yes.
And they didn't have Vision Pros with them. And the PR person from Apple is like, didn't we send you one? And I'm like, you super sent me one. And I super didn't bring
you
now,
out?
hold on. They didn't tell me I should bring it. In fact, this was a thing that was added sort of last minute. So it wasn't like, hey, we want to set this up and you should bring your Vision Pro. That's not how it happened at all. But she's like, didn't we send you one? And I was like, you guys did. But that's actually why I didn't bring it with me, because I didn't want to carry Apple's $4,000 headset on a plane. So maybe I should have. But here's the thing, just to be super candid about it, like I flew out Sunday evening and I slept the whole way because I wasn't going to get to San Jose until something like 11 p.m., which is like 2 a.m. my time. So by the time I get to the hotel, I'm only going to get like 4 hours of sleep before I have to get up and go to Apple Park in the morning. And flying home, same thing. I flew home on a red eye. So like having the Vision Pro, I'm not watching a movie. I was asleep the whole time. So
okay, all right. Okay, I still can't believe you haven't done this yet. Train support now. You got to try. You got to try it at least once.
But
I just
Steven,
want to see what you think about it.
I just can't get over the fact that people will have to look at me wearing a Vision Pro.
Oh, they'll be fine. Nobody cares. Once you do it once, when I put it on, when I finally worked up the courage to put it on in a Starbucks, nobody cared.
Like it was easy for you though.
No, it's not easy, but you do it. But anyway, all right.
You were just doing it for the views. You were really hoping to be shown on TikTok somewhere.
I really wanted to get on TikTok, but it did not happen. It was too far after all the hype. Nobody cared. It was like months later. So anyway, I want to talk about the Magic Mouse later too, because that interview MKBHD Today had with Tim Cook was hilarious, and AI gadgets I think are finally dead. But anyway, before we get into all the Apple Park and dub stuff, we do have some 5-star reviews and a non-5-star review. Thanks a lot. We were a 5-star podcast for 1 week, and so thank you all. We need you all to get to show up.
We need like 90 more 5-star reviews to cancel out the 3-star.
We can do it. We can do it. But exciting things. So Flaquito6969, he said he listens to English and Spanish podcasts, but we're his #1 Spanish podcast. Or no, English podcast. We don't speak Spanish. But yo hablo español, but I don't know about Jason.
Yo también.
Oh, we got to do a Spanish version. It'll be very short because my vocabulary is not very big. But that'd be pretty good. So yeah, there was a 3-star review who said, great podcast. He had very nice things to say, exclamation mark. And then something Tesla, and he was upset about that. So
I love my Tesla. I've said this many times. So maybe he doesn't like Tesla? I don't know.
So we're going to weed it out because we're probably going to talk about Elon Musk at the end and what he thinks of Apple Intelligence. But so we need more 5-star reviews so we can get back up to 5 stars. We're 4.9 right now. But other 5-star review shout outs, Steven964 and Felix TC. Thank you for those 5-star review and reviews and star ratings. Also, we crossed 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Huzzah! I should have like a soundboard, like a ding, ding, ding. I don't know.
Does it work in Riverside? Oh no, there's no like fireworks.
I turned off the
man.
I didn't do that. Oh yeah, because there's like the fireworks, order, right?
That's what I'm saying.
All right, let's try it. Reactions. Let me do the fireworks here. Hey!
Oh, there we go.
Look at that, fireworks. All right, now I got to make sure reactions are off. Otherwise, it's going to keep doing it. Okay, we did it. Okay. We did fireworks, so we crossed 1,000. The channel is monetized, which is amazing. So we should make about $3 an episode. That's awesome.
I've already spent it. I had coffee this morning, so.
Okay, let's go. But thank you all so much for showing out, subscribing. Our recap video had really good views. There was some audio things going on, different recording environments. Jason was at Apple Park, which we'll talk about. But anyway, We have 187 5-star reviews right now, and so now the goal is 1,000. We need 1,000 5-star ratings and reviews to get back up to a 5-star podcast. So thank you. No, but really, thank you all for doing it, and especially subscribing on YouTube. It's been great. So Jason was at Apple Park. Did not wear Apple Vision Pro on the way there, but you were there in person. I heard the ATP guys talking about the food, the chairs. They raved about the wooden chairs. So anyway, I want to hear all about it. Well, how was your experience? This is not your first time. You've been
Correct. I was there last year as well for WWDC, and I've been to a couple of iPhone events and that.
Yeah,
kind
so
of
you're
thing.
regular. You're regular.
Not as regular as some people, but I've been there a couple times, so it's fun.
Well, but how was your experience this time?
It was good. Well, I will say this, like, no one's going to care that this is the best part, except for last year, it was probably 20 degrees hotter the whole morning.
Oh.
So it was very nice to not be quite as hot. It was fun. I was sitting next to Zach Hall from 9 to 5 Mac.
Yes.
He had come up to me. So what they do when you get there is they send all of the press people to this area on the 3rd floor of Cafe Max for, like, they have just coffee and pastries or whatever. Because they basically want you there as early as possible so they can stop letting people in, and then they usher you to where you're going to go. So they give you food in the meantime, which is nice. And he comes up to me and he introduces himself, and that was great. And when we walked down together to find a spot to sit, and he was like, we should sit up there. I'm like, we should not sit up there because that's the area not in the shade. I was like, I promise you, we should sit 4 rows back in the shade. And by the end, he's like, I'm really glad we sat back here because otherwise we would have both been like completely charred. But it's great. It's a lot of fun because it's unlike some events that are media only events. You know, there's a lot of developers there and they get very excited about things. I mentioned this in our recap, but they get excited about APIs and stuff that the rest of us are just like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But it was a cool environment. There's a lot of press people there. There's a lot of developers there, and then there's obviously a lot of Apple people, and even Sam Altman managed to make it in. So that was kind of cool. So. Yeah,
that's right. How was I saw these pictures of like these breakfast croissant things.
Yeah.
Did you have anything there? Was it good food?
So this is actually kind of funny. My oldest daughter is a huge fan of chocolate croissants. And so basically everywhere I go, I send her photos of whatever their chocolate croissant is. I'm going to send you one of these because it is definitely worthwhile. And so I just sent her this photo, and she's asked me, how many do you think you could get in your bag and bring home?
She wants you to smuggle them out.
And I'm like, if I do, I'm super going to have to leave right now because they're just going to kick me out. But yeah, the food's good. Like, it's a little like fancier than, I'm a pretty simple person, Steven. I don't need like super fancy food, but yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun. So,
okay. And then the chairs, I'm trying to get this croissant photo. Oh my word. So I have Safari open over here, and I try like dragging the photo into the Safari window to show it in Safari because that's just how I'm trying to do it. And it basically made the croissant photo the background wallpaper for my Safari home screen. So forget it. But I can show it in preview. This is the croissant.
Yes.
Yeah, those are the little egg sandwiches that I had seen from other people. They look pretty good.
They were good. And then the other thing was some sort of, they called it French toast. It was basically just like a churro with cream cheese and strawberry on the inside of it. It was all
How was
good.
the coffee? Someone said the coffee machines were good too.
I mean, it's just brewed coffee. Oh, two different things. They have brewed coffee basically everywhere. Cafe Max, they'll also make you a latte or Americano. And there's a Cafe Max basically everywhere I went. So this year I spent a lot more time inside the Ring building because, like, if you just imagine the number of briefings that they have to get through and the number of people that they're filtering through those briefings. I mean, they're using their fitness center, the Steve Jobs Theater, and lots of areas inside the Ring. And everywhere I went, in every single building, there's a Cafe Max. It's like,
really?
They're everywhere. The fitness center has its own Cafe Max. Inside the Ring, I walked past several places that said, with people with shirts that say Cafe Max. And then there's the huge Cafe Max that has the giant sliding doors. That's basically where everyone sits, is just outside of that, and the stage is just opposite of it. So, working at Apple, you do not run out of coffee. Like,
that's amazing. That's me. I want to show you my Safari window now. This is what my Safari looks like now. It's your croissant photo.
I'm so sorry.
That's hilarious. I'll change that later. One thing, I think it was Marco or John Syracuse who was saying, so those wooden chairs that you sit in, because I look at these pictures that people post of like the viewing area, and I'm like, man, those chairs, they don't look comfortable on the face of it because they just look like wooden chairs. But are they comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, there are there's two different types of chairs. First of all, there are the wooden chairs that are basically, I think, the Cafe Max chairs. And that's towards the back. That's where the media people sit. Then there's actually a second type of chair. I'll send you this so you can update your background for Safari.
Thank you. Thank you.
Which are where the developers are sitting. And they actually look like they're sort of like a fabric type chair, but the wooden chairs are fine. Like, there's nothing amazing. They're very nice. They feel like a very solid wooden chair. It doesn't feel like something you find in like a classroom at a school or something like that.
Right.
Are they comfortable? Like, I don't know. I mean, as comfortable as a wooden chair could be, I guess. So
I mean, you could sit through a 2-hour keynote and you were fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally fine.
Yeah.
So
yeah, these fabric chairs are interesting. So even with that covering over the top, it still gets hot up there? Well, I guess the sun's coming out.
Well, I got to send you one more photo while we're doing this.
Okay,
so this will help you understand.
I got so many Safari backgrounds now that I can just...
I just want to help you out. I mean, I can send you the rainbow stage. Okay, so I just sent you one. This will give you a good picture of what you're looking at is from upstairs out into Cafe Max, where there's a seating area. Then there's a gap that you'll see where there's a lot of sun, right? And that's kind of where we were sitting. And so there's a gap between the building, the ring building, and then that canopy that they built. So if you're sitting in the wrong spot, you're going to get toasted. So
were you sitting like inside?
No. So if you look at that giant screen, the left-hand side there, on the other side of that, we were basically 5 or 6 rows in front of that. So
okay. Yeah, this is. One day I hope to visit this. I mean, this is just crazy. And again, the HP guys are talking about the glass sliding doors, just how massive they are.
I mean, that's just the employee cafe. Like that's where you go to eat lunch if you work there.
I mean, there's this little tree inside there, like multiple trees. Oh my word!
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, it's very exciting. Glad you got to go, and you got to record in Apple Podcast Studio, which is very exciting. So one half of us have been there. One half of this podcast.
I saw your face there, Stephen. You've basically been there.
One and a half. One of us, 1.5 of there. So it's exciting. But anyway, I'm glad you got to go. Glad you're back. So more stuff. I had so many questions after the keynote, especially about Apple Intelligence, and someone said we shouldn't say the S word so much. So how do you say the S word so you don't trigger out all everybody's HomePods?
Shoot. No, I'm sorry. That's the other S word. That's what we say at our house when our kids. Sorry.
That's not that S word.
Wrong S word. I thought you were worried about us getting the explicit tag. You're just not wanting to set off everyone's HomePods. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You can just say hey iPhone, I guess.
Hey iPhone. Yeah, but hey Dingus. I like hey Dingus, but
I mean that's sort of like the generic. Whether you're trying to talk about Alexa, whatever, Google Assistant, all those things. Listen, so here's the thing. I get it. Don't mean to be setting off people's devices. At the same time, why do you have that on your HomePods anyway? Right, turn it off on everything. We've talked about this. It should only be on your watch and on your phone. Right. And I'm pretty sure. Isn't there like a setting where it recognizes basically only your voice, like a personalized setting? Yeah,
but that doesn't work. That's one of the problems with the HomePods. I have.
Well, that's why you just turn it off on the HomePods. Exactly. So it should only be on your.
But I have. I think it's personal requests. Yeah. And if you have personal requests enabled, it's supposed to recognize your voice specifically, but it still answers to everybody. Like there's not a setting to say don't listen except for my voice. It's just that then you can do personal requests like text so-and-so, and your HomePod will do it.
Or like what's on my calendar or something like that.
Yeah, if you have what's on my calendar. But it can still be activated if someone says it. So let us know. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. And let us know what word should we replace SIRI because it was not rebranded. That's still the name. So anyway, I want to talk about Apple Intelligence first because I kept like rapid firing questions to you because you got to get some information. But right before we do, what and how many devices are you running the beta on? That's the question.
Yeah. Okay. Great question. So right now I have it installed on a MacBook Air, not my primary device. I've installed macOS beta. I've installed iPadOS on, again, not mine. So here, just to be clear, I have a couple of review units that I've neglected to send back. Right, and I thought before I send them back, I'm going to just put the betas on them, and because there's no pressure. So I'm running iOS 18 beta, iPadOS 18 beta, and macOS 15 14 beta, I could not figure out how to get the Vision OS 2 on because it doesn't give me the ability to just turn on the developer beta. And so then I went into the developer website, went through the whole hassle of logging in, downloaded the image, and the Vision Pro's like, what do you want me to do with this? I don't know what to do with this.
Well, you probably need the developer strap to use the image file.
I have no idea what I'm supposed to do, but this thing's like, dude, this is not a Mac. What do you think you're doing downloading things to this?
So it doesn't, I actually hadn't tried it because I was like, I was going to do the beta, but I'm like, I mean, turning photos into 3D sounds cool. Moving icons around the home screen, fine. But that wasn't enough for me to like go through the hassle. And I didn't. I
want to do the Mac. I want to do the Mac projection. That's the thing I want to test.
But that's not even in the beta yet. That's from what I've heard.
Well, then
people
I'll
running
wait.
it.
Well, but the problem is, it's like the instructions say go to settings, software update, beta updates. But I don't have that beta update. Like it doesn't show up. There's not that option. It is on all my other devices. And it's like weird because I'm still logged in with the same iCloud. I wonder if there's a setting for logging into your developer account because not everyone has the same developer account as Apple ID. So I wonder if there's a setting somewhere for that. So maybe I need to just dig in a little bit, and it doesn't recognize. So anyway.
Okay. All right. Well, I am running it on a secondary iPhone. I have the iOS 18.
You're not going to get any of the features on that. You're not going to get any of the Apple Intelligence on that. Okay.
No Apple Intelligence on this, which Apple Intelligence is not a part of any of the betas now. And I'm inclined to think it's not going to be until release. Like I really don't think it's going to be even in like later betas.
They do say summer. They said it'll be available.
They said summer?
So they said it will be available to developers this summer, and that it'll be in. So this is why it's confusing. It says it'll be available in beta as part of iOS 18. What that means is when it releases in the fall, it'll be in there, but they're going to be labeling it as a beta feature, right? Once it's publicly released. And then it just says that it'll be available to developers this summer.
Okay. So then maybe when the public beta is launched, which comes July, usually the first or second week of July, maybe we'll see it then. So at that point, I'll have to think about whether or not I do it. We'll see.
Public betas are pretty safe. The worst thing that happens is you end up losing some battery life, but you've got a Pro Max. It'll be fine.
Well, the battery stinks right now anyways because I have like 300 cycles, so it doesn't matter. But so I'm running it on spare, my secondary iPhone, which look at the dark icons there. Look at that. That's pretty cool. And my iPad mini, which was my trusty iPad for so long, I put it on there and then immediately thought about like, what am I doing with it on my, like there's nothing on the iPad. There's no features there. there's no iOS 18 gave nothing here.
Well, so because the mini doesn't, the mini supports the Apple Pencil, so you can use Math Notes.
Is Math Notes here? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even search for the calculator app after I did the beta.
Yep.
Oh, look at that. I have the calculator app on my iPad mini.
Yeah, and so you can, if you have an Apple Pencil paired to it, if you click the little calculator icon there, it'll ask you if you want to switch to Math Notes, and then you can start a new note, and then you can.
What calculator icon?
Down there so if you're holding it in that orientation.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
See? Yep, there you go.
Oh, Math Notes.
Yep, there you go.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do this live on air. So I'm going to put my Apple Pencil. Just connected it there. And now how do I draw something here? It didn't pair. Oh, boy. Oh, Apple Pencil Pro. Does that work with iPad mini? Never mind.
You have to use a normal Apple Pencil, bud.
Forget it. It's over.
We've been through this.
Compatibility.
Hang on. I have a drawer full of Apple Pencils. Do you want me to just send you one real quick?
Just give me one real quick. Yeah, just hand it over. Yeah,
that would be amazing if it worked that way. Now, that is the AI we need.
That is we need the particle, whatever.
It's not AI at all. It's just
no.
defying physics. But anyway.
Okay. All right. Apple Intelligence. I had so many questions. I think still people are wondering, what does this mean for Hey Dingus on non-Apple Intelligent devices, which I think we can answer that right off the bat. For non-Apple Intelligence devices like this iPhone 14 that I use as my beta device, it's the same. Hey Dingus is the same. It's not getting all the improvements.
I did specifically ask this, and it was actually... Okay, so like... The people at Apple are wonderful. I just have to say that. But when you ask them questions, you have to be really careful how you ask a question, because the way that they'll answer it, you have to make sure you're interpreting it based on a certain thing. So anyway, basically the gist I got was that it'll be what you just said, the same. And then I had to clarify, the same as what? Same as it is today, or the same as what we're talking about for Apple Intelligence? And it's like, basically the same. And I'm like, as it is today. So anyway, but it will be basically the experience. That said, I do think that there are some improvements that are coming to the way that they've sort of architected Siri, that even if the Apple Intelligence features are not there, no one said this outright, but the sense I got is that Siri should be better for, they've done some work that'll make hopefully Siri better. And I think some of that it involves the way it can parse your requests and stuff, but you're not going to have access to the models on your phone, and you're not going to have access to just send the stuff to ChatGPT. So that means that you're not getting any of those additional features. But I do think I don't want to say like it's not going to get any better, because I do think that there are some things about it that they are trying to make improved. Yeah. But you're not going to get the cool, I don't think you're going to get the cool ring.
You don't get the cool ring, the outline of the phone. And like, you won't be able to ask it the kind of complicated queries like in the keynote, where I forget the presenter, or even like Craig Federighi was like, will I make it to my daughter's play tonight with this event? Like, you can't do any of that. Like, that's Apple Intelligence stuff. That's
you can ask and you'll get the same response that you get now.
Here's some web results for musicals. That'll be the result. So basically non-Apple Intelligence devices, which it's pretty wild, like the newest iPhone 15 will not get Apple Intelligence. Like, it's only the Pro. And that got me thinking, just speculating, this fall with the iPhone 16, I wonder, will it just be the 16 Pro that gets Apple Intelligence, or will the base model like the 16 and 16 Plus, will they have a chip capable of Apple Intelligence? Because that seems like a big selling feature, and getting people to upgrade even if they're on the non-Pro devices, you know what I mean? So
yeah. So should we talk just a minute about the reason for why certain devices can do this and some can't? Are we at that point yet, or should we hold off for a minute?
I would love to hear. So why?
Yeah. So I think, it's important, because people keep asking this, and I had this long conversation on Threads, and people seem very like flabbergasted, because what I said on Threads was that the M4, because people were real disappointed that the iPad with the M4 didn't get any magical features, and that you can't do anything that the other M devices can do. And the reason is, so basically Apple Intelligence has two tiers. Think of it that way. There's two things that can happen. One is there are a lot of things it'll just do on your device entirely, right? Because it actually has the models. Apple has built models, and they will be on your device. So a lot of the things you'll do, the phone will just handle that, or your Mac or your iPad or whatever. Then there's the next level of that, which is where it's going to send it to the cloud for the private cloud compute. And essentially you have to just think of that as like an ancillary processing unit for your phone. It's meant to be transparent. You're not supposed to be distinguishing between. And so I asked Apple, what distinguishes the difference between a query that you might ask that's going to be handled on your phone and one that will require private cloud compute? Is it the type of query, or is it the processor in the device? So, because what I really wanted to know is, like, can an M4 iPad do more things on device than an M1 Mac or an A17 Pro phone? And they said it's based on the query. The reason is the stuff that the on-device models can handle is the same, and it's because of the RAM, right? So only devices, if you think about this. Now, this, just to be clear, Apple didn't specifically confirm that it was the RAM, but if you do the math and you look at what are the devices capable of doing this on device, they are all devices with 8 gigs of RAM, right? So the iPhone 15 only has 6 gigs of RAM. The 15 Pro and Pro Max have 8 gigs of RAM. And every M series, sorry, I got real excited there. Every single M series laptop device, or period, like iPad, they all have 8 gigs of RAM at least. Some of them have 16, whatever.
I was about to try and prove that wrong, but I looked at the M1 iPad Air, which in my mind is like the least powerful M1 device. Yep. But that, like you're saying, it is 8 gigs of RAM.
Yep. And so and that makes sense, because the M series on a chip, that RAM is a part of that series on a chip. So they don't like take away some of the RAM. You can't get it with like less or more. So in order to have the model on device, it has to have 8 gigs of RAM. So Apple is not arbitrarily gating this because they're just trying to get you to upgrade. It's because you literally have to have the entire model in memory in order to run these queries. So devices that are capable of doing that. Now, that doesn't mean that the M4 iPad or the M3 Max MacBook Pro won't do certain things faster. But if you think about it, the limitation there is the types of queries that Apple could address with the models on the phone. And those are going to be, I'm not an AI expert. I'm not a large language model expert. So
We're
somebody
also
may
not
know
lawyers.
this. I'm also not a lawyer or a doctor or a physicist. Whatever.
We're not detectives.
I just write things on the internet and read
not
a
in the
lot of
circus.
stuff. Right. That would be really fun. But anyway, The Greatest Showman, my kid just watched that a couple days ago. So circus would be
it's
fun.
good
Anyway.
movie. Yeah.
But speaking of which, we watched Wonka the other day, and I
yeah,
could
so
have
did we.
told you there were so many times when I'm like, is this just The Greatest Showman? What movie are we watching right now?
First of all, it's Showman, not Showman. But that's just beside
Greatest
the
Showman. Showman.
That
Whatever.
well, we need to. Well, what?
Yeah, you just interrupted my interruptions. So sorry. Anyway, moving on. So I think it's just important to understand that like it's not going to do the M4 is going to be capable of doing some things faster, but if you are doing a thing that requires private cloud compute, which is the more advanced thing. So again, Apple won't specifically clarify this because they honestly don't want you thinking about it. They should all just be transparent for you. But you can imagine like the image playgrounds. If you're doing that, for example, and if that requires private cloud compute, it's going to be just as fast on any device that's capable of doing that because it's not handling it on device. So
that's right.
I think that's an important way to think about it. But to answer what you were getting at was next year's iPhones. I can't imagine there's a scenario where next year's iPhones will not have it a minimum of 8 gigs of RAM. And I know there have been rumors about how they're going to do the chips. At a minimum, you would think that the next iPhones, the iPhone 16, even the base model, is going to get the A17 Pro, right? Like it should have that. Or I mean, don't you think? Like,
I mean, it could
it's
be
not
like
gonna
an
get
A18 that has 8 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, well, okay, fine. But I'm saying the floor would be the A17 Pro. It's going to be a better chip than that. So,
right. Well, that's okay. So that makes sense. The 8 gigs of RAM. I imagine like neural engines have been getting bigger with the M series chips. So I imagine some, like you're saying, processing will be that. Okay. So that's why the chip gating for Apple Intelligence, and also why an M4 and M1, like there's not going to be a difference in capabilities. It's just the 8 gigs of RAM. A couple other details about Apple Intelligence. Apple said it's going to be English only, and one of our listeners asked, "What about the UK?" As far as UK English, and I've not been able to find a direct answer on that. Was that like US English only at launch? Did you know?
So I believe that it's that the original launch for Apple Intelligence is only in the US and in English, right? So those are two totally separate things. I think in order you have to like think about. So what it says is it won't be available in the UK period, whether you speak English, US English, whatever. Once it expands to other countries, I'm sure that they will address that. Like now, they did say that if your device language is set to US English, right, that you'll be able to use it. And so, I don't really know how that exactly works, but they are intending to expand that, I think, as quickly as they can. It's just if you think about it, you have to basically reproduce all those models in different languages. So,
and this is. So the footnote on the Apple Intelligence webpage is what I have here. It'll be in the show notes. Apple Intelligence will be available in beta on iPhone 15 Pro, Pro Max, and iPad and Mac with M1 and later with Dingus and device language set to US English as part of the 18 updates this fall. Some features, additional languages, and platforms will be coming over the course of the next year. It also talks about Apple Intelligence compatible devices and has the list at the bottom of that site, which I think it was Parker Ortolani pointed out. That M1 MacBook Air that's like $700 at Walmart right now will be capable of Apple Intelligence. And is an amazing deal.
Yeah.
Even
well, and this is one other thing I think that's also a good distinction to make. See, I feel like we're creating like the authoritative record right now about all what is Apple Intelligence, what is not.
Absolutely.
Because there's a separate thing that Apple's doing. And if you think about the keynote, a lot of the features that they showed off in the first 45 minutes, they didn't use the phrase Apple Intelligence at all, right? They talked about machine learning.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All machine learning features are dependent on the neural engine on the chip, right? So yes, the M4 iPad should do all of those things faster because it's got it. I mean, I think that they said, correct me if I'm wrong, that the neural engine on the M4 is like twice as fast as the neural engine on the M3. Something like that. I don't know, but I mean the point, or maybe they were comparing it to the M2. But regardless, like it's going to be significantly faster for all of the machine learning type tasks. So that's things like identifying faces in photos, right? That's a machine learning task. There's a lot of these things that are under the machine learning umbrella, and Apple is being pretty specific about how they distinguish between those things. So machine learning is like those types of tasks that require the neural engine, but those have been around since the M1, right? You can keep doing those things, you'll just be able to do them faster. Apple Intelligence is like integrating the ability to parse a phrase or a term or a query, looking at your data on your device to provide you back with an answer. And then there is the third level of it, which is the integration with outside chatbots, large language models. Right now, that's just ChatGPT. That's separate entirely. ChatGPT has nothing to do with Apple Intelligence. It's not powered by Apple Intelligence. Apple. Go ahead.
No. And I think that's a good distinction again, because there's been a lot of confusion about ChatGPT. Is it built in, whatever? And so the live talk show that happened Tuesday evening, I watched it in Apple Vision Pro, in 3D. The biggest shout out to Sandwich Video and Adam Lissagor, because as far as I know, I think it was like the first live streamed 3D thing that you could experience in Apple Vision Pro, like streamed live. The stream went great. There was, a couple freezes in the video for like half a second, but the audio was flawless throughout. And you could actually this is a new app on Apple Vision Pro from Sandwich where you have a theater environment and you can choose where you want to sit in the theater, back, middle, front, side, or side. Spatial audio actually changes. So if you put yourself on the right side, you'll hear the video audio coming from the middle. It was a really great experience. And these were some, I think, of the most revealing information about Apple Intelligence and ChatGPT. But Craig Federighi in that interview said, ChatGPT integration is off by default when you update your devices. So it's off by default. What happens is the first time you ask it to do something that Apple Intelligence cannot do, maybe it's world knowledge, maybe it's write me a first draft of an essay about Theodore Roosevelt or whatever. The first time you ask it, it will prompt, do you want to send this to ChatGPT? And from then and forward, it will always tell you, do you want me to send this to ChatGPT? The box, it'll be very clear whenever you're sending it to it. And lastly, there is a setting where you can just tell your iOS devices or your Mac, never ask about ChatGPT. Just never enable it. Don't prompt me about it. And I never want to see it come up again. And I guess Apple Intelligence will just tell you no, I can't do that in the future.
Yeah, and to be clear, if you choose that option, it won't send it. You can't just, because it's going to be annoying if you're using it that every single time you have to say, yes, please share. Saying don't ever ask me means it'll never send it to ChatGPT. It's not, there's no setting for send this to ChatGPT and please don't ask me. That's unfortunately not an option at this point, because it's going to be real obnoxious if it's something that you use all the time.
Right. Now we're going to come back to the talk show live, because I think there was some other interesting tidbits. I will say Gruber, he was lobbing a lot of softballs to him, which Gruber would ask this long question, which was really more of a statement, and then Craig and Jaws would be like, "Yeah, we agree. Well said, John." That was literally 3 or 4 things that happened during the interview. But to John Gruber's credit, he asked Jaws, "Where's the money going? Which direction is the money going between OpenAI and Apple?" To which Jaws said, "Nope, not answering." Just straight up. It was that question, and there was a question about what chips are in the Apple servers running private cloud compute. And there was this funny moment. Did you get to see it? Did you watch it?
I didn't see the talk show yet. No, I tried. This is the reason I should have taken the Vision Pro on the plane.
Yes, you should have taken the Vision Pro for this. The recording is not up yet, so you had. That's why I wanted to watch it live too. Gruber asked Federighi, what chips are running private cloud compute? To which Craig Federighi turns to Jaws and he's like, "Are we saying? Can we say?" And Jaws is like, "No, we're not saying." And Craig is like, "We're not saying."
But I do think, and I said this during our other recording, I said it was the M2. Yeah. Turns out I don't know why I said that. I mean, there wasn't a slide that said M2, except if you do the math. If you think about it, it's pretty obviously the M2 Ultra. There is no M3 Ultra at this point. Also, Apple wanted to get off the M3 so bad that they put the M4 in the iPad Pro. So there's no way that they were like, let's order some more of them, because TMC wants nothing to do with making the M3s anymore. So the M2, some version of it, makes the most sense. And the M2 Ultra is I think the M2 Ultra is still the fastest overall performing
like
system.
multi-core,
Yeah.
multi-threaded
And
stuff.
again,
Yeah.
like this isn't CPU load. This is like GPU load and neural engine load. But even still, I
Right.
think it's pretty safe to say that it's an M2 series chip. But it is true that Apple is not saying that. And I don't know. I just made it up.
So they're not saying what chips are in there, and they did not say which way the money was going. Again, the ATP guys had some pontification about which way it might be going, because like who is really benefiting from this arrangement? And honestly, you could say both. Like Apple is benefiting because LLM and AI features are going to be built into the OS that they don't have to offer themselves yet, like write a bedtime story or whatever. And so Apple gets that benefit where they can tell their users you have all these capabilities built in. But ChatGPT also has the benefit of their product is going to be built into devices off by default, but still built in, which is a huge like exposure advantage. You know, you're going to have millions of users that can just turn on ChatGPT and start using it, and might encourage users to then upgrade to ChatGPT Plus for, you know, more queries, faster access, things like that. So it does seem mutually beneficial, but there's got to be money going one way or the other. And Gruber was like, "Can we get Eddie out here? Like, can we get Eddie Q to talk about this deal?" And then Jaws was like, "Yeah, and a bottle of tequila." It was just a funny moment in the talk show. But I think it is clear money is going some direction. They are just not talking about the direction.
Okay, so this is interesting because Ben Thompson has a theory that there's actually no money going back and forth for this. That was the reason that Google wouldn't sign a deal, because Apple wasn't willing to pay for that particular access, and that OpenAI is like, "Yep, put us in there, plug us in, let's do this, let's be the default option for now that you still have to turn on," and that the reason for that would be, yes, ChatGPT is already the like brand leader. Like I think someone said that they're like the Kleenex of AI, right? Like that's the brand that everybody knows, ChatGPT. Right. And that they have the opportunity to upsell people to a paid thing, and that at some point, I think this is Ben Thompson's take, that he can totally see an auction where Apple is getting paid to be the default place, just like they do for search, but that Apple doesn't care right now because this is not fundamental to the experience. It's just additive to the experience, so they aren't going to be paying for that, even though it's very expensive. So I lean towards that particular take, that at this point there wasn't any money exchanging hands, and that at some point they're going to allow. Well, actually, Federighi. So there was another conversation that was Federighi and John Gianandrea in the afternoon. We talked about this a little bit earlier this week, and during that, Federighi specifically said, like, Google Gemini, like, we would like to have these other people in there. So I think it's like, I don't know that there's any money exchanging hand at this point. I think it's all about like taking it's like a land grab. Like, let's just get into the right spot. So, and
OpenAI has the advantage of being exclusive right now. And if it's just the first year, which I could imagine, just like you can change your search engines in Safari, even though no one changes it off the default, it could be you have OpenAI, you have Google Gemini, you have Perplexity, that one day you can have those options just into the settings of your Mac and your iPhone. And then at that point, Apple can be like, just like Google pays us to be the default search engine, now you may pay us to be the default AI engine part of it. But I also think even longer term, there will be a day where that just goes away and Apple just has the LLMs, proprietary, first party, unless like ChatGPT and these other services keep advancing so fast that Apple can't catch up, which we have to talk about training data in a second, because that actually came out in the live talk show as well. But anyway, I'm also inclined to think maybe there is no money changing hands right now, which I just have to point out the crazy nature of these AI arrangements. Microsoft has a 49% stake in OpenAI. Microsoft,
meaning they've given OpenAI like $11 billion, just to be clear.
They've given so a lot of money going that direction, right? And OpenAI and ChatGPT powers Copilot, Microsoft's AI feature. And now the same company, OpenAI, is built into Apple's operating systems as part of Apple Intelligence. And like, what a strange time, like, for this like intermediary, namely OpenAI, to be so heavily embedded in the two biggest players when it comes to desktop operating systems and Google Gemini, they obviously have the most used mobile platform worldwide, and not the U.S., but worldwide. And for them to just, I don't know, it feels like they're off to the side. I don't know. It's just a strange.
Well, what's even more crazy about that is that I just said that basically Microsoft's given them $11 billion. What they really gave them are credits to use Azure, right? That much money worth of credits. So what that means is,
oh yes,
Apple isn't paying anything, we think, for OpenAI, and yet all of these customers and all of these queries are going to be running on Azure servers from Microsoft that Microsoft is giving to OpenAI for basically free for them to take queries from Apple users. Microsoft's not getting any money from Apple, but even though all of this work is taking place on their servers, you just start to do that math in your head. Now, and I just wanted to clarify one thing, which really is pretty insignificant. There is the reason for the AI, I'm sorry, what do they call them? Copilot plus PC standard or whatever, is that Microsoft is trying to move a lot of that stuff to their own on-device language models as well, which is why they require 16 gigabytes of RAM. And so, but it is still just sort of like mind-bending that it's like Microsoft is like, yeah, we want you to be part of our service. And it seems like the implication would be, while it's not an exclusive arrangement, that we would get like the first. So we're paying you, we're giving you free credit so that we can do our thing, and now you're using part of that so that Apple can do its thing.
Tenuous.
Yeah, Nadella's got to be so mad.
It's so crazy. All right, I'm glad we're going this far in depth. This is going to be the episode that when someone asks about Apple Intelligence, you send them this episode.
Absolutely.
And whoever you share it to, say after you're done listening, 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcast. All right.
Absolutely.
A couple other things, realizations. Chatbot interface, namely like the ChatGPT app on Mac or whatever, where you can just ask queries. It seems like that is not a thing that will exist on Apple's operating systems. I mean, you could say that Hey Dingus is somewhat that, but the reason why I was asking is like my workflows that use ChatGPT, which, just as an example, when I make a video for YouTube, I transcribe it as it's uploading to YouTube. I take that transcription, I put it into ChatGPT using Text Expander, which automatically puts one of my prompts that asks it for a title, description, and tags, and then ChatGPT just generates that from the transcript. And I use the Mac app for ChatGPT to do that. It does not seem like there's going to be an easy way or a way to do that even with macOS and Apple Intelligence or iOS. Does that sound accurate?
Well, yes, not a first-party native way to do that, but you obviously can still use the ChatGPT app, and you can imagine there are a lot of scenarios like the one you just described where you very well might want to just keep doing that. Also, like the impression I get is that this whole thing is so locked down because it's Apple that there are a whole lot of things you're not going to be able to say to Siri, give me a story about an unsolved murder from, like it's not going to do a lot of things. So you'd still want to, but it's not, I don't think this is a scenario like where, so like right now, one of the things that was fun is to like play around with the lock screen and stuff like that. And I don't know if this was true before, but like I just put a ChatGPT widget on the thing. I don't know if that was there before or not, but it's like the voice one. So you still might want to just like talk to ChatGPT outside of the very carefully curated, gated community that Apple has built around its voice assistant that we can't talk about.
Because I was looking at the Apple Intelligence page here, and like the writing features that you'll get, like when you select text in an email or a note, basically has the proofread option, which, goodbye Grammarly, we hardly knew ye. You have
assuming it's good. Assuming this is good. We don't know that yet, but yeah.
Don't know that yet. I imagine it's going to be pretty good.
Also, it's also not going to try to stick its little bug in the middle of every text field, meaning like in Slack, you can't even hit the send button because the thing just sits there. Yeah.
I don't have Grammarly installed. Like if I ever really wanted to use it, I just copy and paste it on the website because the built-in one is just super annoying. But anyway, so this little box that comes up for Apple Intelligence, all you have is the proofread, the rewrite. You have, make it friendly, professional, concise, and then stock options of summary, key points, table, and list. So it's not like you can give it a prompt, a specific prompt for Apple Intelligence. Whereas it seems like on the ChatGPT integration, like if you look at the very bottom of this page, you can select a bunch of text, say in a Pages document, and literally put a prompt for ChatGPT there. Now, I'm not sure if this will work how I usually use it, like give me a YouTube title, description, and tags from this text that I have highlighted. It seems like maybe it would work that way, but my workflow with ChatGPT and Text Expander is probably still going to be easier. But it just seems like there's no chatbot interface per se for Apple Intelligence or even ChatGPT that's built in to the OSs.
Yeah, I think that's sort of true. I mean, you could argue, because like the previous screenshot you showed, describe your change. I mean, that's essentially the same kind of a thing where you can type to it right there. Like that top thing is type, like make this more exciting and add like whatever to it. You can, you know, because essentially all of those other things are just pre-canned prompts, right? That's all of those
Summarize
are. This is like, nope, I want to make my own prompt. So, but I think you're probably right. There's still going to be a lot of use cases where people are going to still just want to use ChatGPT or whatever.
Exactly, yeah. All right, a couple of the small details. When you update your device, so let's say you have an iPhone 15 Pro, you install iOS 18, now you have Apple Intelligence on there. I assume, like even now when you do a big iOS update or get a new phone, it's got to index all the things because Spotlight has always been a thing, and it's indexing your entire phone for that. Now it seems like with Apple Intelligence, it's just going to index way more stuff. Like, and your device is just going to get so hot the first time you update as it chunks through all this stuff. But I assume the LLM, meaning the on-device LLM, when you update to iOS 18, basically just gets installed on your device. So that seems like a one-time, like, and so if you ever move device or upgrade your phone, it's just that LLM is built into iOS. Again, in a second, just correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. But the LLM is built in. And then the semantic index, which I'm just going to think about it as a more complex, more in-depth Spotlight indexing. Like it's just indexing way more stuff, like your text messages, your emails, all your calendar events, all this kind of stuff. That stuff will have to be re-indexed, say, when you upgrade to the iPhone 16 Pro, but you're not necessarily retraining a model because the model is already trained and being installed on your device. It's not like a model is being trained on your data on your device. It's just that your data is being indexed so the model can refer to it in the semantic index to then process your queries. Does that sound right?
Yeah. So I was looking through some of the notes that I had, and one of the questions was like, well, if you get a new device, does it have to retrain the models? No, the models have already been trained and they're just on your device. Like that's not a thing that's happening on your device. In fact, Apple is very clear that it won't use your information to train its models, right? Because the model is like the global thing. That's like it's what is, everybody gets the same models, right?
Right.
The semantic index was sort of explained to me as a volumetric index of the relevant topics on your device. So essentially what they're saying is like what it's going to have in it is all of the things on your device related to, let's say, coffee, right? So that if you ask a question about coffee, it's like, well, here's the text messages that have coffee in it. Here's their photos that have a cup of coffee in it. Here's the emails you got about your last trade coffee order. Here's the thing. Like, so all of that's going to be in this place. And then it will also be connected to all of, like, say, the people. So, like, if you asked a question to it, say, what was that coffee that Steven recommended to me when we were at Apple Park? Right. Which would be a cool thing to be able to say, because I'm looking forward to Steven being able to be there at Apple Park with me and recommend coffee. But like, it would be able to go and be like, oh, here's the coffee thing. Here's the connection that ooh, man, I got to stop hitting my microphone. Here's the connection that
you have to watch the YouTube version because Jason's just flailing his arms.
I noticed that during the video of our conversation at Apple Park. I use my hands a lot when I'm doing an audio show. Whatever. It's your fault for making this thing be on YouTube. But anyway.
No, but we're watching it. The YouTube is great for those hand motions.
Yes. Anyway, but it'll be able to make all of that's what the semantic index is doing, is making those connections. And then it decides based on all of that stuff, is this a thing I can process on device, or do I need to send it to the private cloud compute? So yes, that thing would have to re-index when you get a new device, I think. Although if you're copying it over, I did not get clarity on whether or not that's a thing that's like can be put into an iCloud backup. Like, you know what I mean? Like if I back up my device, will that copy over? And my guess is maybe no, because your photos re-index after you get a new device, even though you're just copying over the exact same information. But that information is tucked away somewhere behind a lock and key that not even your new phone can get to.
So that as I was wondering, is maybe one day, it's not now, Apple has not said now, but that maybe one day your semantic index because it would be really valuable if it was cross devices. Like it'd be really valuable if everything you do on macOS and your iOS device and your iPad is all a part of the same semantic index. So when you ask, hey dingus on your phone about something that you maybe made on your Mac that is not syncing to your apps, which is one of the advantages of iCloud and all these apps like Bear Notes. I use Bear Notes, but I imagine come the fall or whenever Bear updates that all my Bear Notes will be a part of the semantic index, and that information will be searchable by Apple Intelligence, and all my notes sync to all my devices. So maybe it doesn't matter. But for things that maybe are local per device, maybe you have a file on your Mac. Like I put files in my movies folder when I'm working on video projects. That doesn't sync to iCloud, and that file is just on my Mac. So it would be amazing if I could ask Apple Intelligence on my phone, hey dingus, where was that video transcription that I did about, the Sonos Ace headphones? And for my iPhone Apple Intelligence to say, oh, that is in this folder on your Mac, which it seems like it could not do that right now. And I was trying to log into the iCloud website because I was curious. With iCloud Photos, things like faces and all those like trainings that it does, I do feel like that information syncs to your iCloud photo library because that's a known, you toggle it on, your iCloud photo library. And I just logged in. I didn't realize with my, I got these notifications like, because I have all the advanced data protection on for iCloud, I got like 3 notifications, and my Mac was like, looks like somebody's logging in your iCloud account. Do you want to allow it? And I was like, I just went there on my Mac. Yes, I would like to go there. And on my phone, I had a thing there too. But I was looking here on iCloud.com, which has all my photos. It does appear, again, listeners, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that things like faces are not here. Like, I cannot browse my photo library by people here in the iCloud website. So it seems like that facial recognition that it's doing is, like you're saying, is always on device.
Yep.
And so the faces you see on your iPad versus the faces you see on your iPhone, like those are locked to the device, and that's why
they can be different. It's mind blowing. They can be different. And it's, if you think about it, like it is easy to say like, yeah, that should just follow across every device. I'm sure that there's like legitimate reasons why that's not the case. That they just have not figured. Like if you just imagine they had to build what they kept calling a secure tunnel to the private cloud compute in order to do that. It's like they have their own like it's probably similar to like the private relay or whatever kind of thing, and it's not storing any data. So like it is funny that we're like complaining that this amazing thing is not more amazing, but I'm guessing, like you said, it'll be there eventually. Like
and I'm not complaining at all. I was just trying to wrap my head around what is the device doing, what is Apple Intelligence doing, and one of the other things I will say, private cloud compute. Craig Federighi at the live talk show interview, which we'll bring up some points there and then we'll move on, but he like described private cloud compute and how the authentication works and how your iPhone won't even talk to a server if the image doesn't match something else. And again, like I was just reminded that I forgot what term that we prefer. I don't know if it's geeks or nerds, but Craig Federighi is one of them. Because when he explained private cloud compute, it's like during a live talk show, like he's just spitballing, describing in detail the authentication and why it's private and secure. It just, he lost me. Like, I just don't understand those things. But a lot of work went into making it private.
Yes.
So a couple of the details from the talk show related to Apple Intelligence. John Giandrea was actually the third guest of the talk show. So it was Jaws, Craig Federighi, and JG, which is John Gruber, JG, John Giandrea, JG, Greg Joswiak, GJ, and then Craig Federighi. So a lot of G's and J's. But John Gruber asked John Giandrea about training data, which this was interesting because Xcode, one of the features of Apple Intelligence is going to be code autocomplete and being able to generate some code there. And he asked, like, what did you train that on? Because obviously the wrong answer would be, oh, all the apps in the App Store. Like, that would be the wrong answer because then developers would be like, you just trained a thing on the code that I wrote. That did not happen. That is not the case. It sounded like, as John Giandrea was explaining it, it was basically Apple's apps, Xcode, like the LLM was trained on that. And they also talked about synthetic data, meaning basically like building, I don't know, fake processes or workflows or apps that, basically saying like, here's how you build an app that does X. And then it showed the Apple's large language model that code so it could learn from that. So when it comes to Xcode and that data, they said they did a mix of like synthetic data and proprietary stuff directly from Apple. When it talked about how did you train the LLM on other data, this is where it gets a little wonky. And correct me if you've heard something different, but it seems like Apple did train its own LLM on like the publicly available information, namely the internet. And there was this throwaway line where it said they gave publications the ability to opt out of that training data. I couldn't tell if it was like before they indexed it or after they were like, hey, BT Dubs, we just trained our LLM on the internet. Do you want to be a part of that or not? Like, it seemed like maybe that was afterwards. But Apple did say it was trained on publicly available information and unclear how much. Like, was it YouTube? Was it the New York Times? Like, that we're not, there's not that details. Unless, did you hear anything different?
Well, so this is a thing. It's interesting to me how I can't wait to actually hear the talk show and to hear how they talked about it. Because this was another question that came up in the interview with iJustine. She did the Q&A the afternoon after the keynote. And she just asked them, like, so what'd you train it on? And I think it was JG who answered the question. We trained it on publicly available information. And then he talked about some textbooks and he talked about like other stuff and licensed content. And I think somebody was like, we got to be careful how we talk about public, because that just means we trained it on the internet, which is a thing that there are a lot of people really angry about. And so and I think Apple's kind of like getting some pushback for that. So I think they're trying to be a little bit more careful. Yes, they obviously trained it on the internet. Like, that's how you train a large language model. The only way to get enough information to do that is to train it on like all of the things that we write on the internet. And I think that, Apple's trying to be real careful about that. I think that they're like getting some pushback. I mean, because the obvious answer for what did you, I 100% would agree that they did not train the Xcode auto, complete whatever on developer apps. Like, I'm sure that that's the case. Apple probably means that, but that doesn't mean that they didn't like point their thing at Stack Overflow or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? That's
true.
So basically what Apple has done is they've created, like, you can now filter out just like you can the Google robot, like, right? Everybody has a robots.txt file, right? Like, so like you can just put Apple's robot in there and say, nope, you can't. But again, this is such a weird thing for companies to say, because everyone knows you've already taken the information. Just telling us that you now can opt out doesn't do anything about the models are done. Like, they've already made the model. They're not going to go back and take your stuff out.
Right. And the robot.txt file that you're talking about, when you think about a website, there's a lot of pages that live on a server for a website, and one of them is a robots.txt, which if you have that file on your server for your website, it will basically signal to large language models that are scouring the internet, like, don't nothing to see here. Don't stop here. Just keep on going. Nilay Patel at The Verge just talked about how their robots.txt file, I think they put OpenAI's ChatGPT saying, like, ignore us, please, which, I mean, let's be honest. It's a text file. I don't know. I mean, I guess they have to do it. I don't know if it's like a legal thing, but whether or not they actually ignore it. But no website would know to have put Apple's LLM in their robot text file because it was just announced and it was already trained on all the stuff. So that all seems, I don't know, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Verges, there's a whole lot of pages that they are like, they're disallowing the Apple bot, they're disallowing GPT bot, which is weird because they have an OpenAI deal, so they're probably just sending them to them differently. But yeah, you can see on any website what is being disallowed, and you can actually disallow specific pages. So you could be like, well, I want Google to be able to index this part of my website, but not this other part of the website. So yeah, it's real interesting to be like, yeah, the Apple bot disallow. Except for they've already got too late.
Is it? Okay. So this is
/robots.txt. It's just a text file. Yep.
So any website .com, whatever, /robots.txt. You can just put that in the address bar of whatever website you're curious about. So I just did it here for The Verge.
Yep.
This is basically the text file. So you could see disallow the Googlebot news.
Yep.
User agent. This is a bunch of things.
So that's basically they're saying no one should be indexing those pages.
No one should be indexing those pages. GPT bot, No.
Yep.
Amazon bot. There's Apple bot.
Yep.
I'm curious how they knew it was that. Anthropic. I mean, all these things. Facebook bot. Perplexity bot. All these bots they've disallowed. So it is fascinating. We live in a weird time, Jason. This is wild.
Yes.
This is wild. The last thing I wanted to mention from the talk show interview, and then we'll just touch on a couple other things, and then we have to get to the magic mouse. That's the most important thing.
It is.
During the live interview, Gruber was asking, again, after a lot of softballs, he wanted to ask about the DMA and how laws or whatever, and sometimes Apple will apply a change they have to make with a certain law globally. He mentioned the Japanese Trade Commission with the anti-steering, allowing developers to put links in their apps to their website. And that was a law passed in Japan, but Apple made that just a global change. They were like, okay, we're just going to change this for everybody. So Gruber brought up the DMA, the third-party app marketplaces, things like that, and saying, how do you think about maybe applying those changes to everywhere? And when Gruber mentioned DMA, there was a literal whoop from the audience in approval, which everyone, once the talk show live goes up as a recording somewhere, you have to watch it, because Craig Federighi's reaction was so unfiltered. When he heard that whoop, he was just like, really? and it was such just like a moment where it was past the Apple veil, and you could just see Craig Federighi does not like the DMA,
right?
The whatever the European Commission is doing, and he had a couple seconds of reaction. Where he was like, okay, whatever, and he just kind of brushed it off, and he went in. And I think back to how you have described his talk at Web Summit several years ago, genuinely believing that this is a security risk. And he again reiterated it just a couple nights ago at that live talk show, saying, protection of users, privacy and security. He made the comparison to say, with a phone and an iPad, you can hand it to someone and just say, have fun. Download whatever apps, do whatever. And he said, on stage, he's like, you can't say that about the Mac. Mm-hmm. You can't just say, here's a Mac, do whatever you want. Implying the reason being the App Store. Because you can't install any software that Apple has not approved on an iPhone or an iPad. And so there is still a picture, obviously in Craig Federighi's mind, and I assume in Apple's culture as a whole, that App Store gatekeeping is what is protecting users. I really wanted Gruber to do a follow-up question about, how about those, gambling apps or those in-app purchases that are $500 a week that somehow got through app approval? I think those are legitimate questions if you are so hard standing on this point. But it made it very clear, whatever Apple has to do in Europe to continue selling their devices, namely opening it up to third-party apps and marketplaces or whatever, they do not plan to do globally until they are forced.
Yeah.
And that was abundantly clear.
Well, and one thing I think that is probably, I don't know Craig Federighi, never met him. This is just sort of conjecture, but he does seem like a true believer when it comes to the software side of this, right? Craig Federighi has nothing to do with the App Store. That's Phil Schiller, right? In Tim Cook and whatever. And obviously, he has a little bit to do with it because he's the head of software engineering, it's a software thing, but it's also part of the services business, not part of the software. It's not the same teams that are making Final Cut and Mail and Notes or whatever or the operating systems. I think from his perspective, he means what he's saying about, we can look at it and be like, well, the reason you guys care so much about the App Store is because that's where the 30% comes from. And if people can make their apps available somewhere else. But I think there's a piece of it that is authentic coming from Craig Federighi, where he's like, the reason that the App Store is such a good thing is, not that App Review, can go through and be like, hey, literally, hey, you guys have to put in a subscription to your thing to get money. What Craig Federighi probably cares about is the fact that, no, the reason App Store Review is so valuable is you can't put in an app that will just steal all your personal information or access the things that other apps are doing. You can't do that. I mean, it's true that on the Mac, absolutely you can do that. And one of the reason I believe this is that one of the demos that I had was on privacy and security. And one of the things they just talked about is the changes they made to the way that apps get access to your local area network and Bluetooth. Right. They've changed that, right? So if you want to connect a device now, it's not going to have the ability to be like, actually, it will show you if you say, and this actually just happened. I was turning off my molecule. And so it's like this device wants access to your network. Here are all of the devices on your network it would get access to. Do you want it to do that?
Wow.
So I think that they care very, from Federighi, I think that that's authentic. What's funny to me is he probably thinks people who are at the talk show live are the most diehard of Apple fans, which I think is true.
Right.
But also what he doesn't realize is that, so he's thinking they'll give us the benefit of the doubt that we obviously have the right intentions. What he seems to miss is like diehard Apple fans are the biggest of nerds, and they are the ones who care the most. And also it's a developer conference. These developers care very, very much about this kind of thing. So it is sort of funny, that cognitive dissonance that must have been going through his brain at that moment of like, huh? That's really the reaction you guys have to this? It doesn't surprise me at all though.
Because there was also a whoop for when he mentioned documentation for Swift, and so rightly so. He
thinks that he was expecting that one probably.
Right. So it was just fascinating. So I recommend watching the talk show when it comes out, especially when John J. Andrea comes out to really talk about Apple Intelligence and the training data. So highly recommend. We just did a whole hour on Apple Intelligence, and I think that was worth it.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that was worth it. So real quick, I want to mention the setting that you literally wrote a whole article about, because I think you saw it in person, but mirroring your iPhone to your Mac in macOS Sequoia. Are you excited about that?
I'm super excited about it. I think that it's like, the reason I think this is awesome is it is the kind of, this is like an extension of continuity, right? Continuity is the thing that essentially lets you do the universal clipboard, universal control, which is where you can like have one mouse and slide it off of your thing and it'll end up on your iPad. And then also like continuity camera. It's also what is allowing you to virtualize your Mac inside of your Vision Pro. A lot of people were like, so can I virtualize my phone into my Mac and then virtualize my Mac into my Vision Pro so that I can control my phone from my Vision Pro? And the answer is no. You can only have one continuity session happening at a time. Sorry.
Oh, so you can't do that. So
you cannot do that.
You can't have your iPhone mirrored to your Mac and then start the Mac display in Vision Pro?
Right. Yeah, that's like Inception level versions of continuity right there. You cannot do that because you can only have one. It can only have one continuity, and there actually are security reasons for that. I don't know what they are. So
did you ask or anybody say like, why can't then I mirror my iPhone into Vision Pro directly?
I did not think to ask that, but I think that the reason has to do with the fact that it's running iPadOS and not that's just not really built into that, I think, at this point. But I mean, here's the thing: you can basically virtualize your Mac onto your iPad using Sidecar, right?
Oh, right. Yes.
So
that's true.
in theory, you should be able to, I don't know, nobody asked this, but can you like mirror your iPhone onto your Mac and then using Sidecar? I bet you could actually do that. I bet you could drag it over to Sidecar. Yeah, because it's just treating it as a separate monitor at that point.
So if I FaceTime somebody and SharePlay control their device, because that's coming in iOS 18, can you then mirror that device onto the Mac, then into CarPlay? Anyway.
I think you should just take the Vision Pro off at that point and just use your phone if that's the problem that you're having. But anyway,
just call it a day.
It was very cool. I think it's actually super useful. The number of times where the reason is like the whole notification thing, right? You don't have to have your phone open when you're working on your Mac. The notification will just show up, and if you click on it, it'll just mirror your phone onto your Mac's desktop, and you can just interact with it. And yeah, I thought it was very cool. It was an impressive demo. I was kind of mad that I can't actually do it right now, but I'm looking forward to it.
I'm excited to try it. I don't want to complain about iPadOS because there's just this, that's that.
There's no journal
maybe
app
one day we'll talk
at this
about
time. Yeah.
We'll talk about that another time. We're going to talk about how Elon Musk's reaction to all the Apple Intelligence was kind of wild. I mean, he fundamentally didn't understand what it was. Like, he replied to Tim Cook announcing Apple Intelligence saying, "Don't want it." He got community noted.
Yeah. Well, he gets community noted a lot, let's be honest. Did Tim Cook respond to that tweet?
No, Tim Cook he doesn't reply.
Right.
No.
Well, he just invites him for a walk. That's the best part. Elon Musk was actually just mad he didn't get an invitation to WWDC. And so he's trolling Tim Cook, hoping that he'll get invited for another walk at Apple Park. Because that's literally what Tim Cook did the last time that, because remember he was like all mad about like they're not getting a deal off of the 30% cut on his Twitter premium or whatever. And Tim Cook never responded. And then we find out that there's like a photo of their silhouettes like at Apple Park where they like went for a walk or something.
Yes, I do remember that. Also, I mean, MKBHD replied to Elon Musk trying to explain that Apple at no point sends any of your data to OpenAI without explicit user permission. because Elon Musk was saying like he's going to put people's iPhones in Faraday cages.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Okay, this is what I want to say about this.
Yeah.
Are you not going to let people buy Windows PCs anymore then? Because every single one of them being sold essentially from this point on is going to have literally ChatGPT built in to Copilot, right? Like, so
Yeah.
this is are they going to be running Linux computers there for like what are you doing?
Anyway. Okay, I don't want to get any more 3-star reviews.
Yeah, I'm
but
sorry.
But
I love my
Jason's
Tesla.
article.
I super love my Tesla.
I still want a Tesla. I would like to buy a used one. Anyway, I'll put Jason's article because he wrote about Elon Musk's reaction to that, which is pretty wild. And the other things, I'll just say real quick. I actually got my my AI devices out of the drawer.
Oh, wow.
For this segment of the show, which is going to be 30 seconds. These things are dead. All these things are dead.
You mean you haven't charged them in 3 weeks?
That too. But also they're just like, it's over.
They have no purpose anymore.
If someone had a tombstone, Basic Apple Guy, if you want to make this image, please do it. You can share it on your social media. But RIP AI devices, January 2024 to June 2024. 6 months. I don't know what animal has a 6-month lifespan, but that's what these had.
Cicada, maybe? Those are like the cicadas of the...
It's
I don't know.
Like, two things. Joanna Stern did a great Humane AI pin review video, which I think the most useful feature that she uncovered was translation. But it wasn't great. It wasn't super reliable, but it was one of the best features it had.
Yep.
If you remember, Jason, Apple announced a standalone translation app for what device?
The watch. Listen, I feel so vindicated because have I not? Yeah. I have been very consistent that the killer AI device is the Apple Watch. I mean, it doesn't do any AI stuff yet, but this is where that should live. And just think, I mean, I don't know. This thing is not running an M series processor, so I don't think you're going to get like Apple Intelligence in Siri on this particular.
But translation is probably going to be great on it.
Yes, and the fact that think about it, like if I can ask Dingus or whatever we're calling her now. So that we don't upset people's HomePods. By the way, just turn the feature off on your HomePod if you're going to listen to this. This should just be like
I turn it off on my HomePod.
The minimum requirement for listening to Primary Tech is you have to turn it off. But if you ask it on your watch,
one other thing?
Yeah.
My son has a OG HomePod in his bedroom, and every time I open the Home app, I kept seeing one accessory not connected, and I would go in and it would be his HomePod, and so I finally asked him. I was like, "Did you unplug your HomePod?" He was like, yeah, whenever I'm talking in there, you know, the dingus just turns on randomly and it's whatever. And I was like, well, whenever you unplug it, it shows us the accessory is disconnected. I can just turn off the hey dingus.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll plug it back in. So, like,
yeah, this
is such a widespread issue that my 11-year-old son is like just unplugging his HomePod so it doesn't listen. He's like nuclear option there. But
well, the reason we did it first was because we have a daughter named Macy. Which, when you say that out loud in the house, sounds like, hey, the thing. And so constantly we be like, Macy, come to dinner. And, I can't help you with that. Like, constantly. Like,
here's a web result for dinner.
Our HomePods are just constantly like, would you like to ask me something different? I don't know. It's just crazy. But anyway, I can totally see, like, the ability to ask a question to your watch and then your phone being able to handle it, right? Because that's essentially what your watch is anyway.
So this translation was one of the key features, not it. The other key features like catch up, which couldn't even see the text messages on your phone, which is useless, like Apple Intelligence, totally just Sherlocked all of that. So any value that the AI pin had by itself is now gone. And then the Rabbit R1, which the selling point was the large action model, so it could order DoorDash, which I tried a bunch of times, and it never, ever
still waiting
worked
for his cheeseburger.
I'm still waiting for the coffee and bacon, egg, and cheese that I ordered 3 months ago. But...
if it shows up, do not eat it. If it comes at this point.
It's been sitting in a dude's car for 3 months. Well, it errored out. You could watch my R1 video. It errored out. And I'm going to do a video just talking more about this. But the large action model, Shortcuts already has this, which, you know, Neil I talked about on the Vergecast. You could basically put a McDonald's order in a shortcut and order it all with a single tap. Starbucks has done this for a long time. Like, I literally have a Starbucks order in my shortcuts that I could tap it, and it just orders it to the location Starbucks that I have specified. So, like, shortcuts could already do large action model stuff. Now with Apple Intelligence and App Intents, like DoorDash, which I imagine they will. I mean, I'm sure DoorDash just wants more people ordering more DoorDash. Build it into Apple Intelligence so you can ask, hey, Dingus, order me a bacon, egg, and cheese from DoorDash, and it will 100% be able to do it. So, Rabbit R1, also dead.
Yeah. And several times, both during the keynote and in briefings and in other places, Federighi talked about like Siri will be able to understand and take actions on your behalf. Like that is the goal of all of this. And I use the example, like, wouldn't it be amazing if you email me, Steven, and you're like, can we move the recording to a different time? And on its own, Siri can like analyze the calendar and be like, actually that time doesn't work, and pop up a notification on your phone that says, hey, urgent message from Steven. He needs to move it. Can I suggest this? And it'll just email you back on my behalf. Like that is the stuff now that Apple can do that none of those devices can do.
Right, and Apple already talked about in the keynote the third-party integrations. They talked about Superhuman with email. I forget what else they talked about, but I'm sure Fantastical will be a part of that. Like, it's all going to be there.
Yep.
So large, like, they're done. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Like, I was optimistic at first, but they're all gone now. They're all gone. All right, we have a bonus episode. I want to talk about backpack and backpack or not backpack. That was your problem. But last thing for the episode. MKBHD interviewed Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple. Okay, it's a great interview. Everybody should watch it. I will put the link in the show notes. But he did like this one of these blind rankings, which is popular on social media. Which I will just say, Tim Cook did not understand the assignment, and he never ranked any of them. MKBHD was going to say, I'm going to give you 5 Apple devices, and I want you to rate it 1 to 5, but you don't know what devices are coming. So, whatever rating you give it sticks. But
right.
This is how this works. Like, this is a common thing.
Yeah, so you might start with like the iPhone, and you're like, well, is that the best thing he's going to ask me about, or is it
right,
like,
exactly.
Where does it fit? So,
and I think the first thing he asked was like the MacBook Air. I think which is a good first one because that is, very meaningful or whatever. So Tim Cook waxed poetically about the MacBook Air, about the moment Steve Jobs took it out of the envelope. Never ranked it. Never gave a number. To be clear, Tim Cook doesn't number any of these devices. Which
right, he loves all of his children the same.
Right. Kudos to MKBHD for trying to actually put number rankings on these devices. But there's a moment when he asks about he's asking about the MacBook Air. They talk about that. And so MKBHD says Magic Mouse. This is the moment which MKBHD shared this clip on social media. And there's like the stare that MKBHD. I so wanted him to just look at the camera for half a second as like an office thing, just to like let the audience know he knew what he was doing. Look at him like nodding in this thing. Just watch the whole interview, or you could fast forward to the 12 minutes where he asks about Magic Mouse.
Yeah,
and
he talks about the ergonomics of the Magic Mouse, and it was just delightful.
But all that to say, I'm going to do a poll in our community today. I want to know what pointing devices people use. But I posted on social media because I genuinely believe this. Like, I use the Magic Mouse every day. This is my Magic Mouse right here. I have the black one from like an old Mac Pro or whatever. And like, here it is. I'm using it right now during this whole podcast. It's what I used to click. So what do you use, Jason? What is your main pointing device?
I mostly use the MX3, but I have.
Okay,
I do carry a Magic Mouse with me in my backpack because it is super like light and thin, and that's great. So if I need a mouse going somewhere, I use the Magic Mouse for a very long time. It's great. Just a side note to you for the Magic Mouse. Apparently, if you have a Magic Mouse and you do the iPhone mirroring, you can do all the same things that you can do on the trackpad. Like you can swipe, scroll, tap, whatever with the Magic Mouse. So
okay, so here's the deal. I understand this thing still needs to be USB-C and not here, so you don't have to put it into turtle mode to charge. I understand that is a major flaw, although I don't really charge it that often, so it's not a big deal. I find this to just be my perfect pointing device. I have an MX Master 3. I have it sitting in a drawer. I tried it, and like I tried programming the horizontal scroll wheel to like go left and right and all this. Like I did all that, and I just could not. Just don't like it. I was not as fast with it. It felt not as responsive, not as fluid. And the Magic Trackpad, a lot of people love the Magic Trackpad, especially video editors, like pinching and zooming or whatever. And I, like something about the Magic Trackpad and the way I had to hover my hand over it, and maybe I just was doing it wrong. I was holding it wrong. But like my hand would just get like RSI, like it would feel strained using it for hours and hours. So I couldn't do the Magic Trackpad because video editing is a lot of what I do. And so the Magic Mouse, with the being able to swipe horizontal and vertical, whichever, I do the 2-finger swipe to go between spaces all the time. Like I use spaces a lot, and it's just so fluid, so fast. I am a fan of the Magic Mouse, and I just wanted to say that. I think it's good device.
I agree. I do like the Magic Mouse a lot. There are only 2 advantages to the MX Master. Well, here's the thing I like. I like that I can connect it to 3 devices and just tap to switch between them. So
Sure.
like I have 2 Macs and an iPad, and you can just, which one am I using? Whereas the Magic Mouse, you have to like reconnect it to its umbilical cord to its mother in order to get, paired with the right. Imagine if every time you needed to eat, you had to reconnect to the umbilical cord.
I don't even want to think about that. I don't even want to think about it. It's terrible, terrible analogy. I will say universal
No, it's actually
control,
perfect. It just highlights how ridiculous it is.
Universal controls actually makes it more useful because, like, I drag files to my iPad all the time. Like, for this podcast, I'll drag the WAV files from my Mac to my iPad. Another reason I'm looking forward to iPhone continuity on Mac is dragging video files from my iPhone to my Mac because I film with my iPhone a lot. And I find AirDrop still fails just enough to be super annoying. And universal control, when I drag files, is like 99.9% reliable. So I'm looking forward to that reliability. But
yeah, if you had faster internet, it probably wouldn't fail as often.
You know what? I think that's the problem. I think I need to get faster internet. I installed a Wi-Fi 7 access point the other day. Oh, I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about that. Anyway.
I actually thought you were going to just hang up the call on me when I said that, to be honest.
No. I like the Magic Mouse. I would love to know if you also love the Magic Mouse, if it's your main pointing device. You can let us know in the community, social.primarytech.fm. I'm going to do a poll. I want to know what everybody's using. You can also leave us a 5-star rating and review. Help us get back up to a 5-star podcast because we're 4.9 right now, which is still really good. Thank you all. But let us know, Magic Mouse, trackpad, or other mouse in your review. And I didn't even have time. I was going to mention Setapp. We're trying to do the little like affiliate thing. Anyway, there's a Setapp link in the notes. Try Setapp. It's great. Support the show. I just wanted to. We were so into it. I didn't want to stop. It was such a good conversation. Right. So yeah. So that's that. We're going to go record a bonus episode, and you can listen to that when you support the show at primarytech.fm. Click bonus episodes or directly on Apple Podcasts. We're going to go do that. Thanks for listening. Drop your Apple Intelligence questions to us as well, and we'll talk about more all summer. We're going to talk about it all summer, and yeah, it's fun. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.